Okay, so today we're talking about sales. Sales. Specifically, the vertical I'm interested in today is talking about sales team management and sales team leadership. Going to cover off 8 things, right? I was going to go 8 things. I'm holding a whiteboard marker. Okay, 1, how to start a team. 2, the operations, how it functions. 3, I want to talk about motivation. You need that for a sales team. Coaching, you have to coach your sales agents on a daily basis. How do you measure the results of your team? The drive that needs to determine the result of the team, how you maintain the team, and more importantly, one of the first things, how do you recruit for your sales team? Thanks for joining. All right, so where do you start, right? So when I talk about being sequential, like I just mentioned, well, I've got 8 key topics on here. I underlined this one. Why? Because it comes first. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on recruitment. You have to recruit well. So if you're going to build a team, what product are you selling? Are you nurturing them? Are they middle or bottom of the funnel, top of the funnel? Do you need a closing team? Do you need a nurturing team? Do you need an appointment setting team? So specifically what I'm relating this to is a core team, right? So phone sales. Let's just go there because I think phone sales can cover face-to-face sales if you're doing B2B, but let's say it's a B2C model, B2C model. I run one of these models. It's one of our most successful models on how to deploy this as a leader and a manager into your team, plus the element of building it, right? So to build a successful team, you have to understand the recruitment process. So how are you going to recruit? Who are you going to recruit? What would be the most successful conversion avatar or candidate that you need to look for to build your sales team? By the way, most people get this wrong. Recruiting salespeople is a very, very hard thing to do. So conceptually, you want to focus more attention on this before you get into anything else. My advice, write a PD or JD. Some people call it a JD. I normally call it a PD. What's that? A position description or job description. What exactly do you need them to do? Inside that, you have to put the KPI. If this is a call center team, B2C, what are their KPIs? How many calls are they going to make? How many appointments do they need to set? And all the other activities that a professional sales agent needs to do to be successful, right? So in the KPIs, you've got appointments, like I said, calls, and you would have results. You could also have results here. So you might say they need to make 100 calls a day, for example, but what's the result of that? So you can't just have the KPI without the result. This is probably one of the most important things, results. Agents need to work towards results. KPI metrics are a measurement, but if they're not getting the results, you're going to incorporate training, coaching, right? So those are the key fundamentals I think you need to do. You might look at character. So you want to build a character avatar when you go to the recruitment process. What is that? Good question. It's an understanding of the type of psychology you're looking for in your sales agent. It's attached to the product, it's attached to the market, to the industry, and how you're selling. So if it's a B2C team, which is a core team on the phone, right? And you need them in the PD, the KPIs to make 100 calls a day, does the character align with 100 calls a day? By the way, making 100 calls a day is super hard. That's 500 calls a week. It's a lot of calls. Does the recruit process identify to the candidate and the interview process that that's a requirement of the job to be successful? If you don't have that right, what you're doing is you're hiring people without full disclosure. Then you have some guy come in and he says, I've never done 100 calls. I've only done 50. So you can't meet the KPI and the result that was deployed in your strategy, right? As a manager, you have to do that. So the other thing I always think about in recruitment is transparency. Super critical. Bring the candidate in through the interview process for a sales team and be honest with them. Don't lie to them. Sure, you want to motivate them, say, hey, you're going to earn more money here than you ever have, but be authentic and be honest about that. We have a model where we can bring an agent in and they can earn $250,000 in 12 months, right? Most of them are earning about 75 to 100. So we can 2x their income, more than 2x their income in 12 months. But they have to do this. They have to make 25 minimum appointments a week booked into their calendar. Their follow-up ratio has to be a certain percentage. Their answer rate has to be a certain percentage, and they have to make 100 calls a day. If they can't do that, I can't get them to that number. So if they, in the interview process, you only give them half of the story, what happens is they come in and they said, well, that's bullshit. He told me I could earn 250. I'm halfway through the year and I'm nowhere near that. So transparency and honesty in the recruitment process is super critical. Make sure you do that. So be very clear about the expectations of the role. When I'm recruiting, I make the job sound harder than it really is, right? So I want them to say no. I just interviewed a guy a couple of weeks ago and I made it sound so hard, and I said to him when he left, I said, you're gonna do one or two things. One, you're gonna text me tonight and say that you've got another offer or this job's not for me. Or you're gonna think about it and you're gonna go, I'm in 100%. I said to him, you're not gonna do that. I think you're gonna pull it. He proved me wrong. He texted me and said, I'm in 100%. 2 days later, he came into the office, right? So now I made the job sound so hard, he should have said no, but he didn't. Now that's the sales agent that you want. So if you're a sales manager trying to figure it out, if you get the recruitment process right, or as best you can, all of your problems go away. And it's really easier to deploy the 8 elements that we're talking about today. Most important thing. And remember, this is step 1 in an 8-step process. So you've got to get that right. Again, sequentially, if you get this wrong, number 2 falls over, then number 3 falls over, and then number 4 falls over, and so forth. You get the idea, right? Okay, so PD, JD, KPIs, be transparent. It's got to be results orientated. Recruit on character, right? Don't recruit on experience. Don't recruit on experience. I'll tell you why. Experience, put a big line through that so it's clear. Experience doesn't give you a true lens. And the reason why it doesn't do that, I've recruited over 100 sales agents who had all the experience in the world, but they couldn't deliver the KPI or the result. Because experience is not a byproduct of forward success. And by the way, if they've got so much experience, why are they coming to you for a job that's paying them what it's paying them? They should be earning $1 million a year. So it doesn't make any sense. I would go over character is more important to me than experience. Their honesty is more important to me than experience. Hitting their KPI is more important to me than their experience. I think that's a bad metric to look at. That would be my take. Okay, so once recruitment's done, let's put a tick on that. Actually, let's put a box around it. Boxes, ticks. It's all very confusing. We'll put a box around it, so that's done. Okay, so let's move to starting. Once you've got the recruitment process right and you're looking to build that team, conceptually you have to think about a few things. I'm going to refer this to an avatar. It's an in-office gig, not a remote gig, right? So let's stick with an in-office gig. So we're going to go in-office. You can apply some of these principles to a work from home situation. I think an in-office team, instead of a remote team, is better, is easier to manage. You can create more energy. You can manage them a little bit more cleanly. So my take is this. If we're talking about building a sales team, you have to think about, are you going to start with a work from home team or are you going to start with an in the office team? If it's a work from home team, how are you going to manage them? It's very hard. Very, very hard. So you need to think about when you're starting the business, what model are you going to run with? Model. Some people say I write like a doctor, you never read it, and that's probably true, but that says model. So what's your model? I'm going to stick to an in-office team because I just think it's easier. I think if you're building a team, don't go with the work from home yet. Maybe you need to say, okay, we can do work from home, but you need to come and work in the office first. So my recruitment strategy is localized. And once I've built revenue, I can branch out. When you're starting that model, you got to figure out, am I employing FTEs or am I employing contractors? This is all part of your model. You insert all this into your strategy. FTEs or contractors. Now, if you're in startup and you have no money, you don't have a choice, go for contractors. That means you're going to give away 25 to 30% of your margin. But you're going to take the rest. So don't live in scarcity. You got to pay your agents well. Like I know companies that just don't monetize their agents very well, and their agents, look, their retention rate's probably about 12 months because they will go and find something else if they're any good. If they're not good, they're like this experienced guy who bounced from sales job to sales job over a 15-year career and never make any money. Because here's the thing I know about sales guys is they fall into it. No one went to university to get a bachelor's degree in selling because it doesn't exist, right? So if you've got no money, start with contractors, don't start with FTEs, do not borrow the money. My advice is never borrow money in a startup. You can get investors, sure, but don't borrow it from a bank. It's going to cost you too much. You don't want to be losing 25% here and 15% on a bank loan. Your business won't succeed on those metrics. So go with a contractor. Now, if you've got some bank, you might run with one FTE who creates security in the team, who could be a team leader in 12 months, and have contractors churning the KPI. That's a strategy. It's part of the modeling that you're putting together for building the team. But you really got to think about that. These are two critical things when you're starting to build that team for the very first time. There's all these other things in here. Like I could go on, I could speak about this for 2 or 3 hours. Maybe we should turn this into a course. I don't know, maybe we will. But so you're talking about leads, CRM, communication, comms, you know what I mean? So there's all these things as part of the starting process and the operations process on how that's going to play out. So, and you're going to lose money on that as well, right? So you have to buy the leads. So this is not a cold calling thing. This is an inbound lead to an outbound call, right? You have to pay for a CRM, right? You got to pay commissions to these guys. You got to pay for the lead acquisition. You got to pay for the software and all that sort of stuff. So in operations, I'm going to quickly jump over to there now. Ops is you need to get your balance sheet in order. I'll just quickly jump over 3. It's a byproduct of this. So you got to lay all this out. And what that'll do, that'll give you the direction on whether in your sales team model, how many FTEs you can have, how many contractors you can have, how much you can spend on inbound lead take, right? Do you do Google? Do you do Meta? How's that organic? SEO? How's that going to work? So operations and the starting component are really closely linked. There's a lot of congruency between those two things. So, but get your model right. Like, what is your sales model? I like the contractor model. It just works for me. Because I think contractors who work for themselves under their own tax number are more motivated to make money than an FTE is in sales. I think you could go, okay, in my model, my appointment setters, your appointment setters will be FTEs, but my closers will be contractors, right? So in the model, if you drew the model out, what you'll do is you'll have your closers here, your appointment setters here, and then you might have a couple of other stages that could be composed and done by FTEs, and these guys are closers. So you pay these guys 2%, but you pay these guys 25%, or maybe 22, 23% to even it out at 25. So that could be your model. So all I'm saying is when you start your business, you have to put the model on paper. This works, by the way. FTE and contractor mix, so a byproduct of each, or a straight contractor mix works. I've done it. We've turned over $100 million in sales using both of these models. They both work. This is a stronger model. The contractor model is a stronger model. You will get more out of that model at a faster rate than you will as an FTE. Cool, I'm gonna move on to operations. So as I said, your balance sheet sits in the operational component. Your balance sheet should have a forecast in it. If you don't know what a forecast is, it's not the weather. It's what are you forecasting for sales? So if you're starting in January, this team in January, What do you forecast for 12 months? What's the number? Let's add to the avatar. This is the avatar, by the way. This is the sales team guy here. This is the manager. He's got little round hands. He's got boxing gloves as hands. So let's say the forecast is I want to make $1 million in sales. 1 million. Let me just do this. I like those ones better. So what's the forecast look like? Because you have to incrementally get to that number. In the operational model, when you create the forecast, it dictates what these two elements look like, what your FTE and your contractor mix looks like. Based on the model. Equals the forecast, that's attached to the balance sheet. Those have to be done in that order, by the way. Like I said, if you're to operate sequentially, to get to that, these have to be done in order. Now, if you screw up the recruitment process, this thing here falls over. Every time that happens. So do this in order, please. So back to it. So you need to forecast it out. The forecasting dictates your recruitment process. So the forecasting dictates your recruitment process. And you bring the recruitment process that falls into your model, and then you execute. That's it. So that's the first operational component and the thought process behind before you launch your sales team. Like, we're not even into management yet, coaching, motivation. That has to be done first, because the management of the team will be relying on that to be executed against really, really well. Like super well. Put all of your effort into this. You shouldn't even be thinking about motivation, sales coaching, scripting until that's been done. And all of this, by the way, is on paper. This is in a business plan. All of this sits in a business plan. I'll put business plan. All these components sit in the business plan. So once you've got that, you can move on to management and really start to think about that. So we're going to tick this off. That's done. Operations, very short ride on operations. There's a lot more in operations, but when you're starting a team, you don't want to spend too much time on administration. Get your forecast right. That's pretty critical. By the way, you want to over forecast by about 25%, which is called a stretch target. But the issue is if you overstretch on your results for your FTEs and your contractors, they become demotivated because they're not earning what you said they would. Comes back to the recruitment process, transparency. Be honest with them. I always say it's going to take you 60 days to get a run on the board. They go, no, man, I'll do that in 2 weeks. That doesn't normally happen. Unless in your B2C market and industry, they've worked in it before and they've come to you with all the IP. Because they don't have any product knowledge. If you're building a new team, you have to train them there. And you're not even there yet. You're still stuck in administration before you launch. So let's make sure you get that right. But that's the number you're chasing. So make sure your forecast is on point. Remember, so you might break that into the first month's going to be 100,000. Second month, 125. Third month, we'll jump to 150. And then now we've got some IP built. We can take 150 and we can probably go to 220. So you want to slowly build that out. When you have a number, by the way, quickly, when you have a number in your forecast, and let's say it's 250,000, this is how I do it. I know that a contractor in 60 days can convert X amount of sales. Now, whether they do it ahead of schedule, great. That moves into your stretch. So, but you have to stay focused on the forecast. You're not interested in stretch targets. Stretch targets are going to come organically from recruiting great people and for them having the experience and firing really well and assimilating into the market and the team really well. So I know based on that algorithm that I can generate X amount of money. All I have to do is find that avatar and just drop them into the algorithm. The algorithm is if you make 100 calls a day, you're going to book 10 appointments, You're going to speak to 5 people, it's 50%, right? Out of that, you'll book 2 appointments. Out of that, 1 will take it. You can't close on that algorithm. That needs to be, this number needs to be 3 for you to convert times 1 deal. So in my forecast, I know that this guy can only convert, if he does that every day, right? He can only convert 2 to 3 deals a week. If my average deal count is 4K, 3 4s are 12, that's $12,000 in gross sales. That's how it works. By the way, if you understand what your algorithm is, that number will never change. Your stretch sits on top of that number. Because what will happen is, if it's 12K, 1 week he's going to earn 8, 1 week he's going to earn 10, 1 week he's going to earn 15. K. So that extrapolates out over 30 days. And then you extrapolate that out over a quarter, over 3 months, right? That's how it normally works. But in your industry, if you're selling t-shirts, hospitality goods, I don't really know, courses, we sell courses, laptops, or hardware, technology, whatever it might be, it doesn't really matter. You have to build in your model, you'll find your algorithm. In your model, you'll find your algorithm. That'll tell you what the forecast looks like. And if you get the algorithm right, you'll always hit the number. So spend time in this 1, 2, 3 step process to get all of that right, because that'll deliver that. Because people think running towards that is about selling. No, it's about strategy. Selling's a byproduct of it. Strategy delivers the number. Selling doesn't deliver the number. Because there's too much ambiguity around sales, right? Because they're normally conducted by humans. Yeah, I'm a human, I get it. But humans are inconsistent, right? They get sick. They have good days, they have bad days. Things happen in their lives. So get the algorithm at the lowest point. Don't worry about the stretch. Focus on that. Make sure it's real. And you test it in the first 3 months when you build your team. Test it. And look at your metrics and your data really well. So in here, when you're building the CRM, you have to consider these types of things. We're moving outside of the startup phases, the operational phases, the model, thinking about the KPI schedules, the job descriptions, the recruitment process. That's all the really, really important stuff. Now I'm going to move on to when you've got the team in play, right? This guy, this is the manager. This is the agent. I realize that they have very round heads and they have no hair, but let's run with it. Okay, cool. So the team's in play. You've got 2 guys in your team. You've built the team, right? 2 guys, maybe 3, whatever. Look, let's extrapolate that out, whether you're in a startup or you've already got a team of 5 or 10. Doesn't really matter. So you've got to figure out a couple of things. How are you going to motivate the team? How are you going to coach the team? How are you going to measure the team, drive the team, and maintain it? So these are all the character building, psychological components of building a successful sales team, which, by the way, I think is critical. Now, I spoke about work from home or work in office, right? It's easier to build a team work in office. So my advice would be, if you've got the opportunity, build a team in a small office together working as a team, right? The work from home thing, I've done it. Look, it works. But you have to be in the zone for it. You have to know how to run that style. And you need a manager who's super dynamic and super proactive. Because what happens is, to motivate a team, it's very hard to do when they're on their own. And they're being distracted by the dog, the neighbors, you know, they're doing the laundry, they're walking down to the bakery to get a meat pie. They might go for a run at the park, and then all of a sudden they get distracted. So their motivation to meet the KPI diminishes very, very quickly. So now we're going to get into the nice, cool stuff about managing a team. So I always like to start as if I'm the sales manager, can I coach? Right? I need to think, well, and it is a coach, right? It is a coach. It's number 4. It is a coach. So if you're the startup founder or you've been brought in as a sales manager, and you've been brought in as a sales manager, or you're recruiting the sales manager if you're the founder, coach, that goes back to character. You cannot read that. That says character. You have to recruit the character, right? The sales manager is going to be one or two people. He's going to be in the zone of being a coach, or he's going to be in the zone of being an administrator. My advice is never hire an administrator, push that into operations. Because all you do is you want your coach driving, motivating, and maintaining people. Because these are humans, right? They're not robots. If you're lucky enough to have robots, give me a call, drop me a DM. I'd really like to figure that out. That was a joke. Humans are great. I am one. So when you go through the recruitment process in that first step, and if you're the founder who's not a salesperson, you have to find this guy or girl to be that person. My advice is please don't hire an administrator. You're not there yet. When you're building $10 million in revenue or even 3, bring in an administrator to really go deep on the metrics. People get on the metrics too much. Yes, you need the core metrics, but all the other stuff doesn't matter. So get that guy. Now this person on the sales team, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 20, 50, it doesn't matter. This guy's critical to the business. So, because he has to drive, this is all a little bit out of whack, these numbers, but that's what happens when you're rocking and rolling. He's got to be able to drive a team. So what does drive mean in a team? You know, making 100 calls every day is super hard. I've done it. You know, I was working in a 40-foot container with a fluoro light above my head that was flickering. I didn't have a computer. I had a list on paper that was faxed to me. If you don't know what a fax is, you should go Google that. And I'd make calls off a mobile phone. And I didn't have a CRM system. I didn't have to click on the button. There was no automation. And I'll make 250 calls a day. Now, if you can still find that person, that's great. But, you know, I'm 230 years old, so you probably won't. So what you need to do is you need to find a coach that can find drive in a person. What's drive attached to for a sales agent? Their personal goals. You know, and by the way, age plays a big part. And also their character also plays a big part, and their personality. Will an introverted person make a good salesperson? The answer is actually yes, but will they do it long term? No, because they don't have the character and the personality for it. So you're looking for extroverted people. One of the things I look for drive is curiosity. It's one of my main things I look for in people. The other thing is intelligence. Curiosity, intelligence are my two go-tos. Why? Because this gets them to engage with their customer well, and they're trainable. Like the last thing you want to do as you're building your sales team is to have someone who thinks they know it all and they're not trainable. So they have to have an open mind. If they have curiosity, they'll normally have that organically by default in their personality type, right? Or their architecture. But they need to be intelligent. People, look, this intelligent thing is a tough vertical for people. Because most people who go into a sales role don't have a bachelor degree, they didn't go to university, they probably finished year 10, not year 12. So they've graduated at a low academic level, right? They've worked in a role trying to figure it out, and they've gone from a blue collar role into a sales role. That's really common because no one wants to work in sales because it's super hard, right? So the drive component for a salesperson, if they move into it, is normally organically in them. It's the other character traits that you're looking for, right? So curiosity is on the top of my list. Curiosity, if I was to give you an example of curiosity for a sales agent, when you train them, they say things like this to you. What does that mean? Why would you do that? Have you done that before? And how did that play out? They say to customers, okay, what are you looking to achieve? And why is that? What were you doing before? Right, and what was that like? See the difference? A standard sales agent, if they don't have curiosity, find it very hard to do that. And if you're running a call center team in an office, trying to run to a $1 million target from a brand new team, if you recruit these types of personalities, it just makes it so much easier to get there in the training process. You 2x it, in fact. Because you can train someone without natural curiosity and intelligence, it's going to take you 2 to 3 times longer to get there. That means on the P&L, when you run your forecast, if you work outside the algorithm, is that's going to take you 3 months instead of 2 months, or 1.5. So now you've doubled the term. So that number either has to come down, or you have to increase the recruitment quantity to meet the number, right? So don't underestimate the power of the character of the people that you're recruiting. Super critical to get right. So once you've got that, and say the manager's a good coach, he's got the elements that we've discussed as a driver, right? Okay, so he now needs to think about motivation, which I had as number 3 on the board. Motivation. Doesn't really look like motivation, but that says motivation, okay? What's motivation? Yeah, big question. I think most people think motivation is a superpower in building a sales team. I'm here to tell you that that's completely inaccurate. It is not. You know why? Because it doesn't last. It doesn't last. There's no intelligence in motivation. You know, motivation is a psychological emotion, right? Normally attached to a frontal cortex behavior, synapses firing. It's not really anything that has any foundation, right? So if you're having a bad day and you need to motivate someone to get on the phones, that's great, but that's not going to last very long. You know, if you're going to run morning huddles, the strategy for morning huddles with the sales team is, yes, you want to create motivation, but it's not motivation you're after. What it is energy and focus. Those are the 2 key things you're looking for. So I put motivate here because people always talk about it. I'm not a big proponent in motivation. Like, it's like wanting to be happy. Well, go and eat a bowl of ice cream. That makes me happy. It's not going to get me anywhere, right? Motivation is very similar to me. It's an emotion that's a bit of a waste of time because it just doesn't last long enough and it has no legs, right? So let's get rid of motivation. And we're going to call it energy and focus. Energy and focus. Remember, your goal as a manager is to make your team, this guy here, we're going to call him Tommy. His name is Tommy. You need to make Tommy successful. You won't do that by motivating him. He needs to bring that to the table himself. That's an internal mechanism for people. You're not there to motivate him. You're there to provide energy and focus. That's what I think a sales manager's core responsibility is if they're not managing all the numbers and all the operational components, which, by the way, sales managers should never do, unless they're super senior. You know, if you're paying a sales director $200K a year, they can do all of that. Why? It's just they've got the experience and the knowledge, the IP, right, to bring with them. So focus on those 2 things. That's what I would say. And take motivation off the table and get that word out of your team, right? And focus on these 2 elements. Great, so we've understood that the sales manager, that's you, or maybe someone you employ, is a naturally born coach. He's got the right character for it. He's naturally driven, right? They have to bring that to the table. You can't train drive. They have to own it. For your agents, you need to understand their personal goals, their character, their personality for this guy to be successful. So he can make this guy successful, Tommy, right? And the 2 things that you want to leverage is curiosity and intelligence. These both tie into customer facing and product knowledge. Because if they're intelligent, they'll understand the product, the market, and the industry well. There's a whole bunch of things in this though. There's cadence with customers, you know, natural curiosity, asking the right questions, using the right terminologies, the right phraseology, intonation is another one, tone is another one. I'm not going to talk about that today. That's why you employ this guy for. He needs to bring all that IP to the table. So don't put the manager in if he doesn't have any of that, because you can't train it. So I think the aspect of that is your sales manager should be an older guy, not a younger guy, because he needs to have a bit of life experience and character to boot. You know, I like someone who's had a hard time. I do. I like someone who's probably had a couple of deaths in their family, God, can I say that? Maybe we should take that out. Oh.
Not about that. Something else.
Yeah, something else. Okay, great. You know, I want someone who's had a bit of a hard time, who's had to really work hard to get to where they are. You know, because they understand it. Because you need to remove entitlement out of the team and this guy. By the way, when you recruit the agent, they shouldn't have any entitlement. That's why you bring them in with transparency and honesty and make it really hard through the interview process, because it'll separate the men from the boys, right? Or the women from the girls. It just will. Because if they're super entitled and you filter them really well, they won't take the job. If they take the job, you know you've got that one covered, right? So remove motivation from the team, make sure the manager does that. Focus on energy and focus. Focus is meeting the KPIs, understanding the results, their responsibilities in the team, being reliable, all those sorts of things. I always put that under the banner of focus, because people forget, you have to refocus them. Oh, I didn't know I had to wear pants to the office. You have to refocus them. Oh, I didn't know we started at 8:30, I forgot. You have to refocus them, right? So that's why those two critical things are important. Cool. I want to move back to coaching just a little bit. So if you're trying to get Tommy motivated, as a coach, you can't train Tommy the way that you've trained everybody, right? So let me do this. I'll put it here. You've got Tommy, right? He's a very skinny man with no hair. Okay, so that's Tommy. And over here, you got Rachel. Both sales agents. Rachel's 36, Tommy's 22. It's obvious, right? Do I have to say it? You can't coach these two people the same. Rachel's got 2 kids. Tommy has no kids. Tommy worked as a labourer, unskilled role. This person has a degree. So, by the way, everyone gets this wrong. Like, this guy here always gets this wrong because they're not conceptualizing the team narrative. That's why that planning phase is really important. When you build an algorithm for sales, it's very hard to fail, very easy to succeed. Because if the algorithm is that, by the way, everything is an algorithm. Sales is an algorithm, that's all it is. It's not about these people. But inside the algorithm, it gives you the lens on how to manage and coach these people. So Rachel's 36, 2 kids, degree qualified. Tommy's 22, 0 kids and was a labourer, unskilled. He's got no experience. 0 experience, straight out of high school into an unskilled role, no experience. So when you coach these people, the avatars are different. So if they're selling the same product in the model, right, your modeling should say, in the recruitment process, my best, highest performing, highest converting avatar will be X. So you build the avatar and you coach based on the avatar. If you step outside the avatar, the coaching has to become more dynamic. Has to be dynamic. It's got to fluctuate between a whole bunch of different personalities. So a sales manager who has a sales huddle, which I think are great, by the way, because they create energy and focus. Like my narrative for these two, I'm just going to pivot quickly. For these two is, okay, my focus is going to be our call rates down. So that's my focus for the week in the morning huddle. And I'm going to use it to also create energy. So I get 2 for the price of 1. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We don't want to kill any birds, but you get the point, right? So I'll come back here. The coach needs to be dynamic to manage these people. Because if you have 5 people in your team and they're all different avatars, you cannot coach them the same through a huddle. Because if you're coaching in the huddle something that resonates with Tommy, Rachel's not going to understand it. She won't get it. She's going, what the hell are you talking about? So they're going to get demotivated, as they say, because she can't resonate with the information. Super critical to get that right. 99.9% of managers don't do that. What they do is they go, I coach this way. I'm this type of coach. I'm this type of person. Yeah, but that's never going to work because everybody is different. They have good days, they have bad days. They get sick, they have concerns, worries, they stress, they get anxiety. They're firing sometimes and they're not firing on others. It's not because they don't mean to. You know, we're biological entities. A smart coach and a smart manager will understand that. Very hard to find in people, by the way. Very hard to find. But at least try and focus on it. So that's the narrative for that as a coach, right? So the next thing is measure. I'm going to put measure and maintain in the same category, right? So this is 5 and 7. 5 and 7. I'm going to whack them together. Because when all of this is happening and you're doing your huddles, you're focused on energy, KPIs, results, you've got the right elements of drive in there, you're understanding your team and how you should measure them. By the way, I'll go back to this. You do these in one-on-ones, right? You manage these people separately on one-on-ones, and the huddle is only focused on these two areas. So that what you need to focus on to lift a KPI or a metric should be a team metric that you push through a huddle, but individual coaching should be one-on-ones because they're different personality type and archetypes, right? Important to note. Okay, last thing, measure and maintain. As I said before, KPI is your key core element, key performance indicator. You could call it KRA, is another way to put it, key results achieved. There's all these acronyms, I don't know. There's also FBI, CIA, well that was a joke. Okay, let's not go there. So I like KPI. KGB, you got the KGB. Who else do we have? Interpol? Yeah, it doesn't really have the same ring to it. Let me just cross that out. Okay, so KPI. So 2, 1, you're gonna measure on KPI, key performance indicator. How do you do that? Good question. Remember in the methodology and the modeling, when you put together inside the business plan, you have to have a CRM, all right? You've thought about that in the business planning phase. You've got some quotes. What SaaS platform am I using? By the way, I used to manage all of that in an Excel spreadsheet. If you're in a startup and you don't have any money, just use an Excel spreadsheet. We still track sales team data in an Excel spreadsheet. It's very hard to get all the SaaS platforms and all the software talking to each other under one roof where it's 100% accurate. Very difficult. But so you could use a spreadsheet, right? And what goes into the KPI to measure and maintain the sales team? Calls. I'm gonna go back to basics here. By the way, the coach or the sales manager and the leader can coach that. It's a completely coachable element. This is why it's so critical to have the right archetype, the right personality as the coach, and the right personality avatars in the team. So calls, so the metric's 100 calls a day, just for example. What else is an important metric? So I always talk about being cyclical, right? Working in iterations and steps. Those iterations are in boxes. You don't open box 2, you leave it sitting on the desk. I know it's frustrating. You want to open it, but you can't because you have to finish what's in box 1 first, right? So just focus on eating that cake. Leave the other cake. You can't do that because what happens is in the makeup of delivering these sequential events, if you're coaching the wrong event or action or activity out of sync, so it's not the right iteration and the right stage, it'll fall over. Let me demonstrate. So what comes first in a sales process? The lead. I'm gonna do it here. 1, it's the lead. So, marketing, Meta, Google, organic, SEO, all that sort of stuff, right? Could be face-to-face, door-to-door, virtuals, whatever, doesn't really matter. The lead comes into a CRM, and then what happens is you have to call them. Remember, because it's a call team, B2C. So what's the first element? Calls. What's the first metric you focus on? Calls. Why? Because they can't sell anything without that metric. You cannot close a deal without a phone call. That's why it's always the first metric. So sequentially, what's the second metric? Why do they make the call? To book an appointment. Now I get it, you can close a deal on call 1 if you're super good at it. You don't need to book appointments. I don't know whether you've got a closing team and an appointment set team, a nurturing team, a closing team. I don't really know what the model is, but in our model, we don't have that. In our model, we generate the lead and the agent makes the call, and then the agent books the appointment. What's next? Remember, we're working sequentially. We're working sequentially. I'll get to that soon. We're working sequentially. Lead, call, appointment, follow-up. You can't have a follow-up without a lead. Can't have a follow-up without a call, and you can't have a follow-up without an appointment. So when you're coaching, if you're the manager and you're coaching Tommy, you have to coach this sequentially. Because if you're coaching follow-up and they don't know how to make a call properly, well, it's just a waste of time. Because do you think the follow-up will be any good if they can't do that well? No. It's illogical to think that, right? So again, lead, call, appointment, follow-up. What's the last thing? Close. As a coach, as a sales manager or leader, you have to coach all of these individuals. You do them by one-on-ones. You never do them here in a huddle. You might touch on it. There might be a little bit of a narrative. You can coach narratives here, but you can't coach these here. They have to be here, one-on-ones. Because if you do it here, you're going to break the team. Right? So work sequentially in order of the algorithm that dictates the action, that dictates the coaching, that dictates the delivery, using these two things, energy and focus. That is a secret sauce that I've found in my 213-year career. So, and by the way, all the successful sales companies on the planet use this as a foundation. Cardone, Hormozy, you know, all those guys do this. Elliott, all those guys use the same thing. Carnegie, like they all do the same thing because they have to sell a product. Like if you look at Cardone U, they're a sales company. They're not an education company, they're a sales company, right? So, because they know they have to monetize so they can get to more people. So it's really critical to get this right. If you have a great product and you're really, you know, you've got that type of product that can help people, I think, get from A to B to C in their lifetime or lead them towards prosperity, whatever that means to them. It's important to focus on this. If there's an MTP, a massive transformative purpose that supports it, it's really important to focus on this. If you want to help people and you're doing good things, it's really important to focus on that. Because without it, the chances of building this team with good quality leadership and management will fail because it has to be done in a particular format, in a particular way, using a model, a business plan, and a strategy. And that's what all of this is. So my last thing would be is there's a whole bunch of, so my last thing is there's a narrative around sales that sales is about drive, coach. It's actually not that. Sales is strategy. It's all about strategy. So if I was to just break this down into a simple format, plan, create the model, build the strategy, focus on the right recruitment, and then execute in iterations. And then rinse and repeat that. Sales is not about motivation. Again, motivation lasts a very, very short time. Through intelligence, energy, and focus, using this model, you'll get there. You'll get to that 1 million in your first year, or 10 million, or 50 million, or whatever it is. What you need to do is you just need to maintain it by following the principles of that. What's in order? Because I can coach that guy to close, but if he's not making 100 calls, I'm not going to waste my time. So if you're a sales manager, make sure you do that in all. I think that's probably the most critical thing about this lesson today. So thank you for joining me. Appreciate it. See you next time.